Yeah, kick it off.
All right. Welcome back to another episode of 217 South Mills.
Brought to you by Cabin Coffee Altoona, located at 2922 Meadowlark Lane in Altoona, Wisconsin.
And Pizza Del Rey, located at 911 North Hastings Way in Eau Claire.
And it is my honor today to introduce probably my longest childhood friend, former high school teammate, former tight end for the Bowling Green Falcons, Kevin Steinke. Welcome to the show, bud.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I'm impressed that you remembered all that.
I
thought you were going to have to do that. Was on one take, folks.
I wrote it down.
We're glad to have Kevin on here. I think I'm going to personally interview Kev. He might be weeding somebody off the podcast, and we might be having a new addition, so we don't know what's happening. I'm just saying it's technically an interview today.
And it's going to be nice, too, once this person is weeded off the podcast, there'll be a lot less olive oil all over the table and a lot less heavy breathing and panting all the time. So it's going to be even greater. Yeah. And let's face it, Kevin, you're probably better looking than the guy that we're looking at kind of next out of here.
Always hurtful comments. All right, well, let's get us going here. The first thing that popped up this weekend, Ricky Henderson of the Oakland A's passed away.
Ricky Henderson. I remember watching him and the A's and Dennis Eckersley and Jose Canseco and Mark McGuire. I mean, like they were the team back when we were growing up. It was insane.
The two best things I saw about Ricky looking on the internet, one was the Oakland A's. They were at a deficit financially, $1 million. They did an internal audit, and Ricky Henderson signed a $1 million bonus, framed the check, put it on his wall. Did not deposit it in the bank. So the Oakland A's had to call him up, have him deposit it. The other thing, there was a year, I think it was 87, where Henderson got hurt, and it was Harold Reynolds won the stolen base championship with 60 stolen bases. Ricky called him, and Reynolds always described Ricky as speaking in the third person. He goes, Henderson here, and Reynolds is like, hey, Ricky, what's up? He goes, 60 stolen bases? Ricky would have had 60 at the break. I didn't do him justice the way I said it, but I just love that comment. That sounds so much like Ricky Henderson. So he will be missed, and just a baseball great.
What a great leadoff hitter. I mean, just when you talk about a baseball team setting up, having a player like Ricky, getting on base, getting the walk, stealing the second, hitting home runs. Definitely had over 200 home runs. He's the epitome of a leadoff hitter.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And Ricky's fast.
Ricky was fast. All right, so to some NFL news. First thing, I didn't watch the video, and we'll ask Kevin if he saw it. Did you see the Tank Dell, the knee injury?
Yeah, that's gruesome.
Did you see the actual video? I heard it was a compound fracture, that there was blood coming. I didn't watch it,
I didn't see the blood. I saw the injury. Yeah, I mean, from somebody who experienced a very similar injury to that, I mean, I can feel for it, and I remember the sound it made, and mine was not completely like grotesque and looking. But.
Okay, well, what I'm about to jump in here, similar in severity.
Right.
Your knee was severely injured,
right.
But this is a compound fracture.
Yeah.
Like this was bone sticking out.
I didn't see bones sticking out, man.
Well, I'm just saying that's what I heard. That's why I didn't want to watch it.
It just looked a little bit disfigured.
Well,
here's
the crazy thing about it. Not that we have that much to say about it, but a year ago, this December, in December 23, he broke his leg as well.
Oh, damn. I know that.
So, I mean, I think, did you say it earlier? My bookmaker in Florida said he must not have been drinking milk as a kid. How do you break 2 legs in 2 years and you're in the NFL?
I don't know.
Yeah, drink milk. Kids, drinking milk.
I feel like some players are just prone, to injuries, but I think when you think of NFL, you think of college football, even high school football. I mean, you're playing a dangerous game, and your body's in different angles. And thoughts to him. Hopefully, he can heal up and get back out on the field.
And I mean, as a player watching it, I mean, again, that brotherhood on the team is so close. It is hard to watch one of your players, one of your guys go down, and that he's not going to be at practice. And it's just, this is a substantial injury that's going to affect, one, your team, number two, his family. Like him, I mean, there's so many variables that come across that. And I'm praying that it's not a career ender for him because, like I said, that in itself is a definite.
And that's what everybody's
hurdle.
thinking right now, I assume. But you have, technology, medicine,
Right.
everything advances. We saw Alex Smith, different injury, was ankle or lower tibia, I believe. But he came back to play, which, he almost passed away in the hospital from gangrene or whatever. Like, they almost took his leg and came back to play. So there's always a chance, but yeah, just a gruesome.
Yep,
but it's a violent sport.
Our thoughts and prayers go out to Tank and his family, and hoping that he can recover and come back. So
next up, we got the Lions.
Yes.
So, Kevin, yes, we are in Wisconsin. Yes, we do talk about the Packers, but Joe and I have jumped on the Dan Campbell Detroit Lion train. It is a special program out there, and they ran a very creative play this weekend. And ironically, Ben Johnson, everybody believes, got it from an actual play that happened with the Green Bay Packers versus the Chicago Bears, where Jordan Love actually did trip in the backfield. The Bears defense were staring in the backfield, and the play got off. They had an imitation where the running back went down. Jared Goff acted like he was going down. I guess Ben Johnson actually asked him, do you think you could fumble the ball and pick it back up? And I guess Goff said, yeah, we shouldn't do that.
that's a little risque. That's bad.
But yeah, just a wild run for the Detroit Lions. And like we said, I still think they're going to be the team to beat, especially in the NFC.
And I know we talk about this. Their ability for next man up is ridiculous. They have so many players hurt on their team, and they don't seem to miss a beat. They just next man up. And that mentality is hard because, when you're the next man up, you're not getting the reps. You're not getting any of the stuff that, that the first team is getting. The majority of yours are mental reps.
Yep, and you're in your playbook.
And then in your playbook. And then you have to be able to slide in there and perform. That's difficult. Now, side note, you're also making a crap load of money. So that's your job.
But I think the crazy thing about the Lions this year, we went from saying, oh, it's the second team defense, to, oh, it's the third team defense, to now the latest stat I heard is that they are actually signing practice squad players that have gotten cut on other people's teams. The Detroit Lions are signing them to their active roster, and they're playing on Sundays, and they're performing. This coaching staff, the team, the players, the leadership, just everything's gelling at the right time for them.
Good for them. And I said I could be more happy for a team that has been so far down in the cellar for so many years to watch them perform and have a leader like Dan Campbell. Like I said before, I would freaking play for that guy right now. He commands that kind of presence, and his attitude and is contagious. And all they want to do is play football and win, which is awesome.
All right, I got a question for you.
Yes, sir.
That we're so Detroit Lions behind Campbell, behind this net, would you wear a Detroit shirt?
No.
I found a black one.
I won't wear a Detroit shirt.
313. It's got Danny's face on it.
I can be a fan of you and not have to represent.
What about if we got a Campbell soup with Dan Campbell's face on it? Added it to the table.
That'd be fun.
I think that'd be a good addition.
I would go as far as maybe a bobblehead of Dan Campbell on the table.
Okay.
I would do that. But again, I'm pretty true to where I'm from, and I don't represent other teams, and I can still be a fan of yours and not have to represent and not be a bandwagon and oh my gosh, it's so great. I've been a fan for years. You hear that shit all the time. Oh, you didn't know this, but I was a fan. No, you weren't. Okay, don't lie. It's popular and cool right now, but no, I won't.
I hear you,
Kevin. Would you?
I'd wear a throwback jersey, a Sanders jersey for sure. I think
even a Dan Campbell jersey. Dan played a year for the 0-16 year.
So, being a fan of him, maybe that'd be the only thing. But
what a passionate coach. You talk about that you play for him, but as a coach, when you speak passion, why? What do you get as a player from a passionate coach versus a yeller and screamer coach?
You get, for one, I think the admiration and respect because he played the game. Let's face it, there's a lot of smart people in the world that are coaching that never played, never in the trenches, never did the thing. He already has my admiration. Granted, he played tight end, but still like a pseudo lineman, depending on how you do it. And just you can't fake passion. You cannot fake leadership because people will see right through your bullshit. He lives it, breathes it. He cares so much for his players. He leads by example and not just running his mouth and talking. And that's why I'm such a huge fan of him, because he's done it. He's been there, and you can't fake it. It's authentic and it's real.
I agree. How about Christmas presents? This was the hot thing in the NFL this year, and boy, were there some big ones. The first one is Brock Purdy. It's not number one on the list, but Brock Purdy gave all his linemen Toyota pickup trucks.
Yeah.
That's insane.
You know what? If you want to take care of the guys that protect you,
absolutely. Now with the Toyota, I'm sure there's a deal. I'm sure he represents Toyota, whatever.
Yep.
But I was trying to think back. My last team was Carolina. I believe Jake Delhomme gave the starting offensive lineman, which I was not a part of, which I was sad, vibrating recliners.
Nice.
Now, granted, that's 20 about 20 years ago. The only gift I did receive was Amon Green broke I believe it was the Packers rushing record. He gave out gold pocket watches.
Oh,
and I was a part of that because I was playing a lot of third down and short yardage.
Nice.
But yeah, some of these gifts. So we got Joe Burrow giving katanas.
Yes.
I was like,
Now,
That's fantastic.
being an offensive lineman, I'm not sure giving edged weapons to offensive linemen would be the safest place to go, but really kind of a cool and creative idea. So.
at least two guys had to take the sheets off that and fight.
Absolutely.
In the locker.
Absolutely.
You know that.
1,000%. And, I would watch to make sure how much tape is on their glove. Are we missing fingers? I mean, let's face it, because I'm going to be out there trying to cut watermelon and do whatever I possibly can just to see. I want to test its durability and its sharpness because I want to know what it's capable of doing.
I agree.
So there you go. Hey, Bill, when you think of Christmas, what do you think of?
You in a Santa suit trying to squeeze your big ass down my chimney?
That is the most disturbing thing I've ever heard.
I don't know. Christmas trees, presents, snowmen, candy canes?
Candy canes. The drink of the month in December is the candy cane mocha. It's a double shot of espresso, white chocolate, peppermint syrup, milk, whipped cream, and crushed candy canes.
Sounds good. Not as good as you in a Santa suit trying to squeeze down my chimney.
Come on down to Cabin Coffee Altoona and get yourself a candy cane mocha. What is wrong with you?
The one that surprised me was Patrick Mahomes. It just didn't seem like, with all the hype around Patrick Mahomes, he gave the recovery coolers, sunglasses, watches, Whoop bands, which I'm not even sure what that is.
And the list
goes on. So I'm sure other stuff that's not popular to mention. The one that impressed me the most was Daniel Jones.
Yep.
He got cut from the Giants, and now once again, it's probably his tequila company, but sent Class, or you know how to pronounce it, Kevin?
Yeah, the Azul tequila. So they're the one with the bell.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, the fancy bell.
Smooth, it's really good.
I'm not the tequila guy.
Yeah, but that was impressive that he's no longer with the Giants and still sent them.
I agree. That's pretty cool.
That to me stood out a lot. But yeah,
right.
Purdy wins it with the biggest, most impressive gift. Burrow wins with katanas just being, I'm sure that's never been gifted ever in sports to a teammate or a coworker.
If you're lucky, Bill, being a partner on this podcast, I might give you a Klondike bar for Christmas. I'll give you a Klondike bar. It'll be good.
Even let me borrow a pocket knife every now and again.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's our level.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to the Packers. A couple things with the Packers. They had a nice win against Seattle last week. The thing that steps out, so as we're airing this, I'm not sure when the podcast is going to drop, but the Packers are playing tonight. The thing that sort of pushed me over to the edge where the Packers are 100% winning is their quarterback is going over plays in a cooler, in a restaurant refrigerated cooler. And I'm just like, that's too much. You're already mentally checking out of the game. We had crowd noise in college. That's something we had to deal with.
Right.
Crowd noise, you're not able to do a snap count. You have to adjust. And I said to Joe before the podcast started, I go, it's not like when we were at Wisconsin playing in the bowl game, we turned the indoor temperature up to 98 degrees.
Yeah.
It's just something you have to do. You've played in cold games. You've played in hot games.
Yep.
You just adjust. To take that step further, to take your offensive players in a cooler and talk through plays and walk through plays in the cooler, and that the media is hearing about it, that you're talking about it.
And I just want to say, being a coffee shop owner and being certified in ServSafe, I'm not sure how the health inspection was going to take that when you have a bunch of sweaty guys in your cooler dripping sweat all over the place. I'm just saying that that doesn't happen here at Cabin Coffee Altoona because What? I mean,
But maybe before the next cleaning, we could see how many old linemen we could fit in a cooler.
yeah. You want retired O linemen because
I do.
less, and then if we have current ones, they're probably a little bit more in better shape than
True.
you know. And I mean,
That'd be a good picture, though.
that would be a good picture. Well, again, I care more about the cleanliness of my shop than I care about the funny of trying to get offensive linemen, sweaty guys breathing all over everything. So I'm just saying.
The other thing with the Packers, I saw an interview with Tony Romo, and it sort of hit me that they're similar to Detroit Lions. They're peaking at the right time. Comparing this year's stats to last year's stats, I think Love has one less interception. And we talked about the last couple of weeks, he had to stop turning the ball over, which he's been doing a better job of.
Mhm.
And Romo verbally said they're the team he's looking at right now, which I'm not trying to get Packer fans too excited, but I definitely think they're peaking at the right time. And if they're going to do it, they got to maintain this momentum and keep moving forward. But they definitely have a solid chance.
Agreed.
I think the one thing, their running game, I mean, Josh Jacobs, the offensive lineman there, Josh Jacobs, number one, he's showing a niftiness and an explosion that it's going to be exciting come cold weather playoff games.
Sure.
It's exciting to watch.
And of course, always watching offensive linemen dominate is always a great thing. So let's face it.
I mean, isn't that the greatest play? I mean, if you know as offensive lineman that you're dominating, just keep calling the runs.
Yep.
There's no greater feeling as a tight end, tackle, guard, offensive line.
Mhm.
We're going to run the ball and we're going to run it down your throats.
Have that attitude, make them stop you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like we went through in college where we had our O-line coach, Jim Huber, go on the field in the Ohio State game in the shoe. We were down 19-0 at half. The second half, we ended up coming back. But we were just going power right, power left, power left, power right, power left, back and forth. And Casey Robach, who's an assistant down in Wisconsin, had the genius idea to say to Coach Huber, why don't we try a zone? And Hughes goes, you want to try a zone? Hang on a second. Walks on the field, and this is like a 2:30 ABC game. Walks on the field. Our defense is down the other side of the field. Walks out to, I believe, the numbers and starts yelling like, Dave. And we're like, who the hell's Dave? Dave's the offensive coordinator or O-line coach, whatever. He goes, we're going to run the power until you stop us. Comes back to the bench, looks at Casey and goes, we're running the power. And me and Dave look at him like, thanks, dude. Thanks a lot. Like, our heads aren't throbbing already, right? You want to get them fired up. But, yeah, we did it. We kept going. And they couldn't stop us. And to your point, that's what makes football fun.
It does. And I think everybody has been involved in games where you've felt people's will on defense just leave. Like they want to be anywhere else besides on that field because it's been relentless all game. And now you have the advantage. And now as offensive lineman, you are totally feeding in on that because it boosts your ego and you have more energy than you've had before because you're just going to instill your will on somebody and there's nothing they can freaking do about it. And to me, that still gets me fired up. It makes me smile.
See, that's one of the great stories of Joe Grabowski at DC Everest playing right guard. DC Everest was playing Wausau East, and the first 7 plays of the game we ran right power. And I just remember Joe, because you can hear each other, and I'm tight end 2 down from him. He's like, who the hell do we block now? They're everywhere. And we just ran. I said, just block. So we block, and then we get all the way down to the 5-yard line, and Coach Steph calls a left counter play.
Yeah.
I'm like, come on. And the running back just walks in.
Yep.
If you'd like fresh roasted cabin coffee delivered directly to your door, go to Cabin Coffee Altoona's Facebook page or 217 South Mills Facebook page. Click on the coffee order form link, fill it out, pick out your beans, and get them delivered directly to your front door. Cabin Coffee Altoona.
All right, moving on to college. We had the playoff start, which was not that exciting, which we assumed. What?
I'm going to piggyback off that. It sounds like we were pretty damn right on our assessment of those bowl games.
We nailed it, yeah. We nailed the bowl games. We nailed why the playoffs should. This has been going on, I want to say, for 30 years now. We started with reporters just voting on who the national champ was. To then we do the BCS, which was still not always matching up 1 versus 2, which was sloppy. It's why can't you just do that? Then we go to a four game playoff. Now we're at a 12-game playoff, and we'll get to the issues with 12. But here's my thing, and I say this every single week. I say this to everybody I talk to: hockey, basketball, football Division I AA, Division II, and Division III all have a playoff system that works.
Mhm.
Why can't Division I football, which I did learn is called FCS, is Division I, FBS is Division I AA? Why did we change that? I have no freaking clue. But why can't we get a playoff system that works? So our gripe has been, so here, and I'll let Kevin look, well, this is a strength of schedule of everybody in Division 1A football. The highlighted teams are the playoff top 25 teams. Our argument is, number one, that if you win the championship, should not be a bye, or should not be an automatic in the top 12. It should be the best 12 teams in the country. Now, how do you select that? We've gone back and forth. Joe brought up the great idea of AI. That AI is doing everything else right now. Why not just go back to the computer, say, here's the criteria. We're doing 12 teams. We want strength of schedule involved. We want the one thing that's not involved in this current playoff system is who you beat. So what is involved is strength of schedule, win record, which we'll touch on, the Indianas, the SMU, the Boise States, a couple teams that had a lot of wins, but it doesn't, criteria is not who you beat. It's just wins. So like what Joe and I have always said is you could pick an average to top quarter team currently right now in the Big Ten or SEC, put them in the ACC or the Mountain West, and they could arguably run the table. But you can't do that with an ACC team or a Big Ten or a Mountain West team in the Big Ten. So why not just do it all over the computer? Let the computer pick the top. If we're going to stay with 12, which why not do what every other division and every other sport does? Mm-hmm. But if we're going to stay with 12, let a computer pick it, put the criteria in. And how do we keep having these issues in Division I college football? But nobody else has issues. Basketball doesn't. Hockey doesn't. No other level of football does, except for Division 1A football, or FCS as they call it now.
You know, when you talk about, you mentioned basketball, but that's what makes those Cinderella teams the most fun to watch during basketball. I mean, the Gonzagas when nobody knew Gonzaga, or those day one, day two upsets of the number one seed that finally happened, the number two seeds that go down. I think we're getting closer here with the playoffs that the smaller conferences get a shot. But a school like BYU, they won 2 national championships in the early 80s. They don't have a shot right now. And now with this playoff, they finally have a shot. A team like Florida State last year that went undefeated, they didn't make the playoffs. They would finally have their shot. A couple of years ago, I see, Central Florida, that was an undefeated team. They beat Nebraska. They beat some bigger teams, and they were left out. So it gives the smaller conferences a chance.
It does, but I think the automatic, just by winning a smaller conference, shouldn't be the only criteria to make the playoffs. It should be, who did you play strength of schedule wise? Who did you beat? So Boise State's a great example. They played nobody. They actually played a Division I AA team on their schedule. So that's not even, that's the top, I think, 140 teams for strength of schedule. Division I AA is not even on there. So that's one of your wins. That should be a negative against you. And that's the whole thing moving forward. How do these teams schedule? Because if we're not going to go off of who you're beating, everybody should go back to the way it used to be when we played. Your non-conference games should be Little Sisters of the Poor and the 2 schools next to them down the street, right? And just get big wins. I mean, that's what Penn State used to do, putting up 60 points on the team, 60-0, and it pads your stats, pads your schedule. Or, like you're saying with the Cinderella, open, Division I AA all the way down to Division III, I think it's 32 teams or something like that in the playoffs. Why can't we do that? I think we have 47 bowl games this year. Why not? I've said this for 10 years. Why not every bowl game be a playoff game? I mean, somebody would, if Georgia's playing, say, SMU or Boise State, someone's going to watch that game. If you have 2 teams that, I don't even know who was in the Motor City Bowl this year. It was probably the number 6 Big Ten team versus the number 7 MAC team. Who's going to watch that? Unless you're a fan of that school, right? I guarantee those numbers are nowhere near the January 1 numbers.
But I think you hit the nail on the head. We called out that Penn State was going to kick the shit out of SMU. And now their next one is Boise State.
And Boise State's already a dog.
Yes.
They got a bye.
Yes.
They won their conference. Yep. they get a bye to the second round,
Mm-hmm.
and they're a 10.5-point dog
Yep.
against a team that is seeded 3 spots below them because Boise won the championship game.
Correct.
In the MAC.
I don't care. You don't have the same kind of talent on the team. And I'm not ripping on the smaller schools.
And they have one guy.
Yes.
And everyone's even saying Penn State's the toughest team. Now, I'm not saying they don't have a chance.
Right.
Like we've all said, teams have upset teams left and right. But just the way – can you imagine if Penn State played Georgia week 1? Would Penn State – like everyone's saying right now, Penn State's automatically in the semifinals.
Mm-hmm.
Would we be saying that if Penn State's playing Georgia week 1? Absolutely not. So it's – I don't know. If we want those Cinderella stories, we got to add more teams at playoffs.
Right.
And conference champ, because the conferences are not the same.
Right.
Conference champs, because then, once again, why don't SEC teams and Big Ten teams, because they're the top 2 right now, why not leave those 2 conferences, go to a lower conference, win that championship, you get an automatic bid.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. But now you're going to add more games, more playoff games. Now you're increasing the length of the season.
But everybody else does it. See, that's one of the complaints. Kids are going to miss school. What about wrestling, basketball, and hockey? Those kids are never in school.
Well, let's face it, you never give a shit about missing school 30 years ago. So that would why is that even on your radar?
I have a degree.
Yeah.
I have a degree.
I know you
just
do.
like you do.
Yep, I know.
We are equal with education.
We are.
When you look back, let's just use the MAC conference because I played at Bowling Green. Notre Dame lost to a MAC school. Right, that's their one loss. Bowling Green was winning against Penn State in the fourth quarter. Should have beat them, and Bowling Green also almost beat Texas A&M. When you talk 1AA, we're in Wisconsin here, but North Dakota State has quite a presence. Right, they beat Big Ten teams, Iowa. They beat a lot of schools as a 1AA. You have to give those teams a chance.
And I agree. And that's where I go back to. So I sort of agree on both sides of the fence, but there has to be criteria on both sides of the fence. So if we're going to give them a chance, we have to expand the playoffs. If we're going to give them a chance and keep it at 12 teams, here's my argument. Now, and hindsight's always 20/20, don't get me wrong. But after we saw SMU's performance, did SMU really deserve a playoff over a 9-3 Alabama?
Well, right now, the way the system is, if you look back, SMU, they won national championships way back in the 80s, but they were paying players, right? You can't tell me some of these big programs with the big boosters are not giving those secret, here's a coffee, and by the way, underneath that coffee is a nice briefcase. Hey, keep doing your job.
Oh, absolutely.
The game it's not fair. And if you look at Oregon right now, Nike, Phil Knight, he's 7 years old, or he wants a national championship. The pocketbook is empty. It's whatever you want. Just to fill you in a little bit on the past, because I know you've been busy, so you might not be caught up on the podcast. But with Oregon, they're close to $1 billion in their collective. Yeah.
And there's no rules. There's no regulations. Mm-hmm. Kevin, Nike could come in and pay a guy $100 million a year. There's no rule that says they can't. There's no paper trail for the money. There are billions of dollars out there, liquid billions of dollars, that could just come and go. 2 players, could go anywhere. No one's watching it. No one's monitoring it. There's no regulations on it. So yeah, to your point, there's nothing even about that. And we've addressed that. If it's going to stay going down this road, you have to have a salary cap. You have to have contracts for players. Whether you negotiate a 1-year, 2-year, 3-year contract, you have to hold coaches' contracts accountable. Because right now we say coaches' contracts are only for the money. It does not matter anything for the years, because they could leave after year 1. So you got to hold coaches accountable to those contracts as well, if you want to have somewhat of a fair system. But right now, nothing about it's fair.
I'm going to say this is, I don't think it ever gets mentioned, but think about, you got ESPN, you got ESPN now, or let's use the Big Ten network. You have games starting at 11 a.m., right? And that TV network, Big Ten, is all the way now to the West Coast at 9 o'clock. So they have revenue coming in. They're getting viewers. Now, who's the ones that are not getting it? It's your local high school teams, your small college. like right here, UW Green Bay, I can guarantee you can buy a ticket for $5. But yet everybody in Wisconsin wants to go to a Wisconsin Badger basketball game and pay $125 and $8 waters.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, as ESPN has done it, they've eliminated the local newspapers. I mean, as a kid, I loved reading the sports section. I'd look at Little League stats.
Yep.
I'd look at high school basketball stats. I challenge you to find the DC Everest locally here. Let's find the DC Everest basketball stats. It used to be Saturday morning. If I wanted to read football stats, that Saturday morning paper showed me all the stats for the Midwest here of Wisconsin. That's gone.
Yeah.
And so ESPN has done their job. They have eliminated the little guy.
Mm-hmm.
And what really hurts is now money wants to win a national championship, but you're forgetting some of your best events are local high school games. Support your local community, because all this money trying to win a championship, only one team out of 116 can win a national championship, and that's what everybody's talking about.
Yep. So
support you. I guess if I can say one thing, support your small businesses. Support your local high school teams.
Mm-hmm.
For example, my son is in hockey. I mean, if it wasn't for the donations and the golf events, they wouldn't be able to afford ice time. But yet we're going to pay $50 million to an NFL quarterback. We're going to
anything college quarterback.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
for what?
Yeah. And well, Kevin, I don't know if you know this. Here's even the crazier thing with NIL. I'd say it's about 20 states in the U.S. allow NIL at the high school level. So now, I mean, once again, and it's the NCAA allowing laws to be made that allow, and there's no regulation on it. So we're days away from somebody potentially making hundreds of thousands of dollars in high school. Because now, so hypothetically, Wisconsin's collective could pay my son or your son $100,000 a year and be like, as soon as signing day comes, you're verbally committing now, and you're signing with us, or the money stops. Once you get here, it's going to go from $100,000 a year to $1 million a year. They could do it if they could afford it. It's mind blowing to think when we were in school. We say this week after week. If we swept the floor of a grocery store for $3 an hour, we lose our scholarship.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, totally different. I mean, not to toot Joe's horn, but he was a Reebok All-American. I mean, you're probably missing out on a couple million that you could have gotten. I mean, where did you go? You went to the Reebok All-American game?
It was that one, and then I was the number one player
in Wisconsin?
lineman in the nation at the time. So,
yeah.
But I mean, it's just so foreign to me, and I cringe that we call it college football. Call it what it is. It's semi-pro football. That's what the hell it is.
Yeah.
And I can only imagine the bigger schools, they don't want to have your restrictions that we're talking about to make it even, because right now they're sitting on a freaking crap ton of money, and they're buying the players they want, and eventually hey, whatever it costs.
Yeah.
I want a national champion. Nike in Oregon. It doesn't matter.
It's mind blowing though, and we keep saying it over and over and over again. How can you go from one extreme to the other?
Yeah.
Like we say the NCAA was the most regulated organization in America, and now they're the most deregulated organization in America.
Okay.
Here's another thing, and I'll say it because I don't have a filter anymore. The NCAA, their president, and I forgot to even put this in notes. It just popped in my head because I say they're the NCAA assholes. They're a shitty organization. They would not admit to Congress that they used to have a law in the NCAA that boys play against boys and girls play against girls. Congressmen were asking them, why are you allowing biological boys to go in a women's locker room? You know what the president of the NCAA said? If the females want to change in a different locker room, they could move to a different locker room. But the boy with the dick gets to go in the girls' locker room and get changed. It's just they don't have a spine. Take a guess how many employees the NCAA has. 3,578. What the hell do those guys do?
What do they do?
It's absolute nonsense. And then back to Joe's point that you brought up about him being the Reebok All-American, we've discussed many times on the show reparations. This is where reparations, the three of us were in the video game NCAA 98, 99, all those years.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing, should we maybe bring him in on the lawsuit that we discussed?
Yeah, probably.
All right. We are debating filing a lawsuit against the NCAA for NIL money. So I forget the two guys' names. I should have saved the note, but two Michigan players. One was their quarterback from, I think, around 2016. The other was a receiver closer to our era, like around 2010. They're suing the NCAA for $50 million for name, image, and likeness money. So our genius idea is, and we'll bring in on it, the three of us sue the NCAA, maybe we'll up it to $6 million. And they're going to say to us, you know what, screw those guys. Let's give them a $3 million payout, have them walk away. We take the money because they got to fight a $50 million deal that's all over the press.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll get some easy money. We're going to have a lawyer do it pro bono. We're going to advertise the law firm on the show in trade. Do you want to be a part of it?
Well, we'll have to look at the dynamics, but I think when you go back, what happens to that price? So like that quarterback, that Michigan Barstool Sports Portnoy, love the videos and stuff, but he wants his quarterback, the quarterback flip. Bryce Underwood, is that his name?
Yep, Bryce Underwood.
He flipped from LSU to Michigan for what, $7 million?
That was the bump. Yeah, I mean, he was 6.5 at LSU. He's getting 12 at Michigan. But here's the other. I'm sorry to cut you off. Here's the other thing with this Bryce Underwood. Everyone says the number 12 million. Oh, he's getting 12 million. So it's 12 over 3. So he's getting $4 million a year. That's just off of the Barstool contract. I said, Kevin Steinke could come in and be like, hey, I'm going to pay Bryce Underwood $2 million a year. And this is what I want. I want 50-yard line tickets. I want you to come to my barbecue, whatever. This kid could arguably be making $20 million a year, all said and done. We only know about one contract that got him to Michigan.
Very true.
What happens when he gets hurt?
Absolutely.
Do you think day one, let's say, let's just play devil's advocate, day one of practice, he blows a hamstring and he needs surgery and he never plays. Do you think he's getting that $12 million?
So I think the smart NIL money, and I definitely think Portnoy had the kid sign a contract with, you can't change schools if you get hurt, this, that, the other. Because when NIL first started, there was a quarterback he got $1 million from a company. And like the first week of training camp, on 2 days, he blew out his knee, career-ending injury, and there was no paper behind the money. The kid's like, you didn't pay me to play the season.
Mm-hmm.
And the kid's like, I'm walking away from football. Kept $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
But at the time, it was so new. So now I'm sure there is more paper that you don't get it. But it's just, there's so, like we brought up in boxing, how there's the rumor that the mafia is involved in the prize purse. How do you know that the mob's not involved, cartels aren't involved? Like, we know, it's common knowledge, cartels are in the U.S. How do we know there's billions of dollars of liquid money? You're telling me people aren't washing money? That's money laundering for the viewers out there. You're telling me
for
people
those
aren't
of you
doing
that are from the East Coast and speak fluent Italian, that is a lot.
It's a Dago, maybe talking to a couple Polacks out there listening. So you got to explain things from time to time. I had to learn what cold pressed coffee was. I thought we were pressing coffee down or something, but I learned it. I love it, and that's why I drink it. But
Hey, Bill, when you think of Christmas, what do you think of?
you in a Santa suit trying to squeeze your big ass down my chimney?
That is the most disturbing thing I've ever heard.
I don't know. Christmas trees, presents, snowmen, candy canes?
Candy canes. The drink of the month in December is the candy cane mocha. It's a double shot of espresso, white chocolate, peppermint syrup, milk, whipped cream, and crushed candy canes.
Sounds good. Not as good as you in a Santa suit trying to squeeze down my chimney.
Come on down to Cabin Coffee Altoona and get yourself a candy cane mocha. What is wrong with you?
Yeah, there's just so much money out there. It keeps me up at night, Joe and Kevin, thinking about the amount of money out there and how there's no oversight whatsoever.
I just know it would be hard to be a freaking college coach right now because, and I said this before on our podcast, I was going to go to Wisconsin no matter who offered me. That was the team I rooted for as a kid. I watched them struggle all the way through, but my heart was still there. But now, if you're going to throw a crap load of money at me in high school, and not really well off, and that's going to sway my position. Like how much? So it all comes down to freaking money, and the loyalty to a team isn't there anymore. So you can't build a wall around the state. You'd be dumb if you're in Wisconsin and you're a great high school player with a tremendous potential to be in college, and they're all in Wisconsin's offering you $2,000, and you're going to get paid $500,000 to go to an SEC school because you're that good. Like, it's a no-brainer.
The only way you're building walls today is with donors.
Right.
Money within that state or money given to that football organization, that's the only way you're building a wall.
Okay.
I mean, you got a billionaire in Michigan that says, and that's the crazy thing too. So Portnoy was part of the deal. The other part was the owner of Oracle, a medical software company. His wife was a Michigan grad. His wife goes, I want Michigan to be a better football team. I want the best quarterback in the country. She reached out to Portnoy and said, let's do this. So it's the wife of a billionaire that goes, I want this college program. Like, hey, Ted Kellner, let's get some more money going to Wisconsin here. Like, come on, let's get some QBs. Let's get some lockdown corners, But I don't know.
On a side note, Joe, what was when you were getting recruited, you got recruited, obviously you went to Wisconsin, but I know Iowa was after you, Notre Dame. Mm-hmm. What were some of those conversations on the phone that, the coaches said to try to persuade you to switch?
Well, it did. I never got to that point.
Never?
No. I got offered a full ride scholarship in between my junior and senior year at football camp at Wisconsin that we went to. So after that, I got the stamp of verbal commitment, and Coach Alvarez even says at this point in time, if you agree to this, he's like, I'm putting my stamp on you. You aren't going to get the phone calls. And I said, that's fine. I still got a shit ton of mail at the high school. I mean, the secretary would come down to my class with a stack of envelopes from other schools. So that didn't stop, but the phone calls, no. And I mean, a couple of handwritten letters from other coaches, saying like, hey, it's not too late kind of thing. But again, I put my name on, I verbally committed and I honored my word, and there was no other way. And even when, when the season started, and I think football was such a tremendous shock to all of us. College football was a shock to me. When holy shit, I'm not sure I belong here because I'm getting my ass kicked. But and because it was just an experience, but I never at any point in time did I think, I should go see and test the water somewhere else. Just because you lose that back then, you would lose that year of eligibility. Right. So no, it was never an option.
How about you, Bill? I mean, did other coaches call you?
So my biggest, because I was going to ask Joe, did you get offered any bags? That's bags of money for the people out there.
No,
don't know.
Zero.
But so I was in my head committed to University of Buffalo. They were the main school that offered me a scholarship. They were 1AA at the time, switching to 1A by my junior year. I got recruited everywhere as a D lineman. My argument was, or their argument to me was, you're going to be a starter right away on defense. And we foresee you being potentially an All-American by your third year in college. Wisconsin, the joke is they had to have had somebody turn down a scholarship. I didn't get a visit until end of January, my senior year. And I actually asked Coach Alvarez this once. I go, did somebody turn down the scholarship? He's like, why the fuck would you ask a question like that? And I'm like, I was just curious. He goes, don't ever ask that again. But I flew out to Wisconsin. The funny thing, my dad taught me a lot about goals, determination, work ethic, all that. And when the day before Huber goes to me, I don't know if he's going to offer you, but if he does, you better have an answer right away. You better not tell him, I got to think about it. So I talked to my dad that night because it was just my mom and I that went out there. And my dad literally goes, I don't know. I think you should go to Buffalo. I go, really? He goes, you're going to play at Buffalo. He goes, there's no rhyme or reason that you're going to play at Wisconsin. He's like, look at how you got recruited, this and that. And at the end of the day, he was one that taught me don't ever have regrets in life. And I finally, while I was on the phone, literally we were just quiet for 30 seconds and I was thinking about it. And I just said to him, I'd rather ride the pine for 4 years and know I tried and be able to walk away and say, I tried at the highest level that I was able to get to and it didn't work out. So that's ultimately how and why I made my decision. But the defensive coordinator at Buffalo was, I forget his name, but he was Frank Reich's brother. Remember Frank Reich? He led a big comeback in the NFL game.
Buffalo Bills.
With the Bills, yeah. His brother was the D coordinator. He outfitted, and sorry, Mr. Reich, he outfitted our whole family in University of Buffalo gear. We all had winter coats. We all had sweatshirts. My sister's asking for different apparel, and there's no internet or Amazon you can look at. She's just like, I want a hooded sweatshirt. I want a t-shirt. Like, they're bringing everything. So, Laura, I know you got your bag. But yeah, I got a ton of stuff, and I felt bad. Like, once I committed to Wisconsin, I was like, should we send this stuff back, or what do we do with this?
You felt bad. You probably wrote him letters afterwards. I know I committed to Wisconsin, but I wore out my winter jacket. Can I get another one real quick? You freaking chiseler. Don't even try to pull that shit off.
How about you, Kevin? What was your recruiting process
Well, it goes back to that. We had a Wisconsin football. And you got to remember, in '96, if you weren't actually going into the '96 season, if you were in the Athlon College preseason magazine, if you weren't on that list of 250 prospects, you had a hard chance of getting recruited. We had the Wisconsin football camp, and I went from day one of a nobody by day two into Barry Alvarez's office. And by day three, it's like, we're seriously interested. We're not going to offer you right now, but we're going to watch you throughout the season. I played. I was, I believe, the number 11 prospect in Wisconsin. Long story short, my coach, Coach Stephenhagen, I made up my highlight tape. I sent it to like 4 Big Ten schools, and then I played basketball. Well, Scott Seeliger, who coached at Wisconsin and knew Barry Alvarez, came down, and it must be a network of coaches looking for a tight end, and that's how I got to meet Scott Seeliger. They flew me out, and they offered me, and Coach Stephenhagen said, if they offer you, you take. So, of course, they offered me a scholarship. I, verbally handshook. Came back, started playing basketball. Well, then Northern Illinois, they wanted to fly me out. I sprained my ankle, so I took that as a recruiting trip. On a side note, North Dakota State actually sent me tickets. I was supposed to fly out and do their visit, and I actually turned them down and said, I got basketball, and they just said, hey, we already bought you the non-refundable ticket. Please come out. And but I was like, man of my word. I shook hands with Coach Blackney, and but at that time, Wisconsin, I believe Aaron Stecker left for Southern Illinois.
Northern Illinois.
Yep. Was it? I think that's the 1AA team he went to.
Was it Northern
I
Illinois?
think it was Southern Illinois.
Or maybe it was Southern.
One of them.
It was 1AA. I do know that.
So long story short, there was now a scholarship available, and the coaches, the O-line coach was calling me every day, on the phone. So I get, the pressure of coaches calling you, but at that same level, you have to, you're committing your 4 years, 5 years of football to a coaching staff. Mm-hmm. And I'll fast forward. Coach Malone was the offensive coordinator at Bowling Green when I accepted. He coached for the Saints, loved his tight end system. Day one, I arrive, and guess what? Coach Malone ended up going to be the offensive line coach at Michigan. Coach Seeliger ended up being an administrator. So the coaches I committed to were no longer there. Yeah. So I ended up running a Canadian offense as a tight end, running clearouts. I can tell you this, going back, I would have never committed to Bowling Green. But on a side note, I played 4 years and, 4 letters. First game was against Alabama down in Birmingham, where we almost beat them 21-7. So, Mac pride. But that whole recruiting thing has now changed. It's now online videos. Totally different. With Huddle, it's just a game changer.
It's insane.
Oh, and here's a story about Kevin Steinke. So Urban Meyer came in as head coach of Bowling Green and offered Kevin a job after he was done playing. And Kevin, I'm going to let you take it over here because you tell the story the best about it. Urban Meyer offered Kevin a job to help out with the football team and be a coach.
Yeah, so we're in the meeting. He just arrived at Bowling Green. He's trying to figure out what's going on, and I'm in his office. And I'm a straight shooter, but I'm also a Home City ice delivery, and I'm making money, which is now beer money. And the beer money feeds the girl money. So, we're sitting in there, and I told him all the pluses and all the negatives. And he's like, that spring, we want you to help out. And, you're the player graduate. I don't even know if there was money involved, but we want you to help out. And I said, I'll think about it, and ended up turning them down. Mm-hmm. Who turns down Urban Meyer? Kevin Steinke did. And here I am today.
And furthermore, insulted him and called him and told him that he's running a Canadian League offense and that he doesn't want to be a part of it. That's what he told Urban Meyer. That's the part. I'm like, oh my gosh.
But I'll tell you what, I can say Urban Meyer has obviously transformed, Bowling Green, remade them, Mac Pride or Mac Championship team, but he still comes back and supports Bowling Green and the golf outings and a
That's
lot
cool.
of stuff. So when you talk about, I think you guys mentioned coaches leaving, in those smaller conferences, coaches every year leave. And when you verbally commit to a team, you think in theory you should be there for 5 years, but these coaches are constantly switching universities. And as a player, that passion of Coach Campbell, well, you're playing for that coach. And when that coach leaves, that's hard on a player, and
well, and that's where I say, like, Joe and I mean, even just hearing your story about Bowling Green, like, we were blessed at Wisconsin in our whole career. On the offensive side of the ball, we had an old coordinator leave. That's it. Defensively, we had a couple DB coaches rotate. We had special teams coach rotate, but head coach there the whole time, O-line coach the whole time, D-line coach, linebackers coach, all those guys were there the whole time. And you have stories like yours where coaches are rotating, but today, I mean, there's no rhyme or reason. The guy recruiting you. I mean, like, I was even blown away a little. Like, we fallen in love with Deion Sanders in Colorado and what he's doing there. And I'm reading these articles about him recruiting or getting out of the portal these top guys. And I'm like, wait a second. He's like, it blew my mind. He's recruiting. I'm like, I thought he was bouncing. And that's just from what I read in the news. Like, I thought he's going to the league. Like, isn't that what we've been hearing? Like, him going to the NFL? I mean, I know you still have to recruit, but how are you committing to Deion Sanders? Like, you got to be asking a question. Are you going to be here next year?
Yeah.
Look him in the eye and see how he responds. I mean, because I thought the whole hype was, and maybe it was just a story, that he was going to be taking over one of these teams.
And speaking of those teams, or those smaller schools, we have a former teammate that has been bounced all over the freaking country, Jason Eck.
Yeah.
And he just took the head coaching job at New Mexico. Okay.
And I gotta give a shout out to my cousin Eric Arcuri. Eric listens to the podcast, and Eric gives me a lot of stuff to bring up too, but he filled me in with that because Eric, this is gonna kill me. Was Eck at Buffalo?
No, he was.
Eck was a GA or he was something at Buffalo because my cousin Eric met him when he was at Wisconsin. Then my cousin Eric went to Buffalo and got to know Jason Eck there, and they've stayed in touch on social media and stuff like that. So he's obviously the first to get a hold of me. So Eric, thank you very much.
Yep.
But yeah, bouncing all over the country. And that's, I mean, right now it's all about the money.
Absolutely.
I mean, same with players. Like, think about players just 10 years ago were picking teams like, I want to go to Alabama because I want a national championship and I want the quickest road to the NFL. Now it's, where's the money? Like you said about, I'm a homegrown kid, I'm going to Wisconsin. Now it's, who's going to pay me the most money?
Thank you for listening to another episode of 217 South Mills.
If you like what you heard, smash the like and follow buttons on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, and X.
We'd like to thank our sponsor, Cabin Coffee Altoona. Tune in next time, folks.